Okay, so um, I was looking at something from the past, and it kind of brought this to mind, talking about WWE World Wrestling Entertainment and how um, it's sold on the illusion of competition, that two people are in the ring and one person wants to, both people want to win, both people don't want to lose. There's an official in the ring that's unbiased and it's calling it down the middle, and everything is athletic competition, right? To pin your opponent's shoulders to the mat for three, or get them to submit to a hold, or to win by count out. Of course, you don't want to get disqualified by breaking the rules. So, anyway, obviously, at this point, um, in the early 90s, Vince McMahon, who was the owner of the company at the time, uh, basically came out publicly and announced that his show was entertainment and it wasn't a legitimate sporting competition. Now, you could say there was for a lot of reasons, and people will say on the outside that he didn't want to pay taxes in the state of New Jersey because of the regulations um, on the sporting events, which by saying that he was not an athletic competition or sporting event, that he would no longer be subject to um, the taxes and the regulations from the state commission. But at any rate, I think back and I've you can kind of, if you look and you question certain things, you can tell that it wasn't a legitimate competition as presented. Just look back and watch people punching each other in the face repeatedly, and no one's hands are broken or damaged, and their faces are look fine after the match. So obviously if you punching people in the face a lot, they're gonna show obvious damage from that. So things like that, you will just obviously give it away. And then there's other things when you watch the match, but to me that's the most obvious thing. It's on the surface. Faces are uncovered, except for masked wrestlers, but it's easy to tell that, hey, something's up. You're watching this and you know it's not a fight just from that alone, right? So there's that level where you have people that are presenting themselves as trying to win an athletic contest. But when you break that down and you say, okay, well, they're not having an athletic contest, and so they're, what are they doing then? Well, then they're working together then, right, with the referee, with whatever commentators, whatever ring announcers, to um, sell tickets. Basically, is what it is, right? So the more people that come to the shows, um, obviously, if you go by the old days in television when you had ratings for viewership, the more people that watch, the more advertising dollars um, can be garnered from that. So basically, the two people in the ring are working together in order to, um, again, like I said, sell tickets, get attention to the product on television, whatever the case may be, pay per view. So there's that aspect to it. So we know it's not a competition. It's the illusion of competition, though. So that if you still watch it, you watch it for entertainment value. It's like if you watch Jurassic Park, you know you're gonna know it's not a documentary, right? So in the same way, you're kind of foregoing that, and it's that thing of you're suspending your disbelief for a little while. You're trying to, you want to be entertained by a good show. So there's that. But in the end of the day, it's still sold as a it's an illusion of competition. So we'll take it a step further. So a little later on in the 90s, there was another small company. It was called ECW, and they ran shows and in the Northeast. And there was a point where the ECW people came on, and wrestlers came on, and quote unquote invaded WWF. It was WWF at the time, a World Wrestling Federation. It was Monday Night Raw, and so on live TV, you have a whole bunch of people from ECW come on Monday Night Raw. And so I'm watching the show at the time, and I'm thinking, well, this can't be right, right? You know what I mean? Like, there's no way you could get 10 people, get into the building, make it out there onto the, behind restricted areas, come on TV, which, they could, there's a delay on it. They could cut to something else. They don't have to show you. They don't have to include you in the show, let you in the ring. Of course not, So again, you're watching. Okay, you can suspend your disbelief, but in the end of the day, you know that there's a cooperation there. That it's not a true competition. So but they sell it as, hey, look, these guys are invading. Hey, they have a rivalry with WWF guys, have a rivalry with ECW guys, wrestlers, promoters, commentators. They don't like each other, and everything that goes along with the competition. So now this is another level of it because it's a quote unquote business competition, right? My company is competing with your company, and even though one company is much larger than the other financially, it doesn't matter. It's still sold as a competition of some type. Um, But then later on down the line, it's revealed that WWF was financially assisting ECW. So, obviously, so they're not competing. But again, this is another layer of a illusion of competition. So again, WWE slash WWF and the illusion of competition, right? So what this relates back to me is when I look at like Donald Trump, right? And Donald Trump, the billionaire, say whatever you want about him. He was involved in the USFL a long time ago. Um, he worked with WWE, and they had a Battle of the Billionaires matchup at one of the WrestleManias, and Donald Trump had a representative, Bobby Lashley, and he took on Vince McMahon's representative, um, in the Battle of the Billionaires. Vince McMahon's representative in this match, his name was Umaga, Umaga. So, you know, that's kind of strange, right? But, obviously it's on a wrestling show, so it's not a legitimate competition. But again, it's sold as such. So for all intents and purposes, if you watch the show, this is a legitimate contest, right? But again, it's so that the company can, separate you from your dollar, get your attention, so forth and so on. It's for, financial gain. But what's also interesting is just, again, like I said, with that thing about Umaga and, Donald Trump, MAGA, right? Make America great again. You make America great again, right? So basically, again, I go back to there's this thing running in the background that kind of pulls strings, makes things happen, coincidences that aren't really coincidences, maybe, but they come off as very unusual that things would coincide or fall around the same time. So if you look at Donald Trump, he also was involved in promoting two WrestleManias in the past when it was World Wrestling Federation. This is WrestleManias 4 and 5. So the 45th president promoted WrestleMania 4 and 5. So again, that thing that's running in the background that I believe is there, I think it shows its fingerprints on things like this. So I take it another step further and I think back now to 2020. And there was a time where there was a wrestler named James Harris. And he also went by the name Sugar Bear early in his career. But he never really had any big um, money drawing times until he ended up going through the Memphis territory. And Jerry Lawler had he had seen this like a mask, that big Kamala mask, the wrestler Kamala. He saw it on Jerry, I believe it was Jerry Jarrett's wall. Anyway, he decided to use that and he called James Harris Kamala. So from there on out, they basically called him Kamala. They didn't call him James Harris anymore on television. So in 2020, James Harris passed away. And I remember seeing it on WWE television that they show a little graphic, and the graphic says James, quote unquote, Kamala Harris, and has his, born die date. And so now they they said James Kamala Harris, not Kamala James Harris, or James Harris, Kamala, or Sugar Bear Harris, or whatever you want to call it. James Kamala Harris. And I remember right around that time, Kamala Harris is announced as the vice presidential uh, candidate for the Joe Biden presidential election ticket. And so again, there's this funny thing that's running in the background, right? Where, okay, it's Kamala Harris and it's like Kamala Harris, right? And it's right around that same time frame. So it's very strange. It makes you go back and you say, wow, this is a coincidence, or is it not, right? So anyway, fast forwarding now, we got 2024, and so I kind of like question things from a standpoint of like, going back to WWE. There was a wrestler named Chris Jericho, and he had a little feud for a little while with a wrestler named Kurt Angle. And now again, like, it's similar to your politics where you have every 4 years you have different people running, and sometimes people run more than one time and against more than one person. So your quote unquote rivalries will change over time. But during this time, Jericho was mocking Kurt Angle, the Olympic gold medalist wrestler, and he was calling him Kirk Angel. And so every time that he would talk about Kurt Angle on television, he would call him Kirk Angel. So, if you're selling a competition, then, Chris Jericho will continually call him Kirk Angel, but the announcers, the posters for the show, they're going to correctly call him Kurt Angle. So, there's no confusion, but for the organization itself running it, they're going to refer to him as Kurt Angle, even though Chris Jericho would call him something else, which is incorrect. And I noticed that Kamala Harris they're referring to her as Kamala Harris recently. I don't really watch much news, but I noticed that that's the very it's very pointedly that it's pronounced that way. And when you watch political ads for her campaign or people that endorse her, they will say the name over and over and over and over in one little 30-second spot. But then I also noticed when I seen a spot from a quote-unquote opposition campaign, the person, again, at least 3-4 times maybe 5 times during a small 30-second clip will refer to her as Kamala Harris. So, if it truly was opposition, why wouldn't they call her Kamala Harris, in my mind? But yet they're calling her what the other side is calling her. So that's very strange, right? That's almost like someone is forcing people to say things a certain way. But anyway, I just found it to be really strange. But that's the thing, right? As time goes by, when we look at things, how many things are actually in competition with other things? Is it just on a surface level? A friend of mine is an Uber driver, and he also was driving Lyft at the same time. Like I guess he would turn one on, turn one off, and whatnot. And he actually told me, just for his own feelings of doing both, that he felt that at some point up the chain that they're both owned by the same entity, whatever that is, whatever, if it's some consortium or something huge or something behind the scenes that we don't even know, that you wouldn't see it anywhere in the books where it was the same outfit. But to be in competition or the illusion of choice, maybe there really is none, right? Everything seems like in our culture is like, okay, well, Coca-Cola is red and Pepsi's blue, and they're competing, and but in the end of the day, why are there only two choices all the time, right? Seemingly. And are all of these things really competing, or is it just the illusion of competition? I don't know. As I go through the experience, I try to take a step back and consider those things. But anyway, it's just some rambling, and I guess maybe next week I'll talk about something else. But anyway, thanks.